Peace, what is beautiful souls, magnificent beings. In this video, guys, we'll look at Dr. Tracy Marks' responses and commentary on the brain and how it works when we experience a setback, and I'll chime in different things. One thing I want to state is this: no child that is birthed onto this earth comes out at a young age when it's exploring what it wants to be as it gets older, desires to become an addict to alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, etc. No youth that is birthed onto this planet tells their child or tells their mother and father that when I grow up, I want to be an addict. So that's something that you and I must think about when we consider what's going on in the broader aspect of our society. Allow us to dig a little deeper with Dr. Tracy Marks as she dives into how our brain operates under setback. Allow us to dive in.
It can feel so destabilizing, and how to recover, not just emotionally, but neurologically. Your brain experiences a setback as a mismatch between expectation and reality, and that mismatch creates a dopamine crash. Dopamine is your brain's motivation chemical. It's heavily involved in anticipating rewards and driving goal-directed behavior. When you're working towards something, your dopamine levels rise as you visualize the outcome. But when a setback disrupts that outcome, especially if it's unexpected, dopamine drops. And that drop doesn't just affect motivation, it creates a kind of mental whiplash. You might feel flat, unmotivated, or like, what's the point? And that's not laziness or lack of willpower. That's your brain adjusting to the loss of expected reward.
And this is why it's so important that you and I really dig deep and start to understand how our brain works, at least at a fundamental level, that we don't get confused with our inability to push forward after a big setback as being us being weak, being lazy, being unmotivated. It is the operation of the brain that has triggered a response that it wasn't expecting. Therefore, the brain sends out its neurotransmitters, drops the dopamine, dissolves us of that energy and that drive to do, because the expectation did not reach the outcome. And this is something that you and I can come to understand. Therefore, when things happen and we do experience setbacks and or outcomes are not in our favor or what we expected, we understand how our brain will respond, and we know how to offset that response so that we can continue to move forward in different areas.
You're working against a temporarily disrupted motivation system. And the solution isn't just powering through, it's helping your brain find its rhythm again. And here's something else. Setbacks don't just sap your motivation, they also impair the very part of your brain that helps you figure out what to do next, the prefrontal cortex. And this is the region that handles planning, decision-making, and emotional regulation. Under stress, especially when the brain perceives a threat or failure, the prefrontal cortex becomes less active. That's why you might find yourself staring at your to-do list, unable to decide what to tackle, or why even small decisions may feel overwhelming. And at the same time, another area of the brain, the amygdala, becomes more active. And the amygdala is your brain's alarm system. When it senses danger or emotional distress, it kicks in to protect you. But it's not great at seeing nuance. It doesn't distinguish between I missed a deadline and I'm in real danger. So now you've got low dopamine, executive dysfunction, and a brain that's tagging your setback as a threat. No wonder it's hard to feel like you can move forward.
So she touches on some key points. She touches on that prefrontal cortex, which is the executive of the brain, which is our ability to plan, to put together comprehensive things in order to achieve certain goals, and the amygdala, which is our fight, flight, alarm system, which under stress, whether it's subtle stress, chronic stress, or acute stress, it shuts down and overrides the prefrontal cortex. And this is why in our society, with the low grade chronic stress that is always at our doorstep because of the structure of the society, unless we develop a game plan to understand and deal with these things effectively, we will continue to suffer in our mental and emotional states. And these things often lead to the subtle addictions that I talked about, some acute addictions, when it comes to us turning to other things in order to soothe the stress, in order to relieve ourselves from having to deal with what we have or our brain has tagged as a danger, as stressful, as something that is an alarm, which stops us from being able to focus and do a comprehensive planning. So she breaks that down significantly. You and I, we must understand that our brain is unique. It works in a way, if we don't understand it, that will trap us into mindsets of believing that when we have a setback and we are not motivated, that it's simply us and not how the brain is having to rewire itself to deal with that expectation. And with our help, with our advanced understanding of how the brain operates, we can assist the brain in speeding up that temporary setback that it's dealing with. Our words matter, what we say matter, how we feel matter. And once we understand that a lot of what is going on is an operational system, not necessarily our conscious thoughts, but an operational system that is working and works in this way. When certain things happens, we're talking about the brain and setback, then we can see from above, meaning that we can look into ourselves and observe what is going on and understand that it's our brain operating in a certain way that we don't want it to operate in because of its conditioning in response to certain situations. Then you and I can outgrow these things and become more effective at rebounding from setbacks, at understanding what's going on when we have a setback, and moving forward in a way that is beneficial to ourselves, to our body, to our brain, and to those who are around us. 5 Level Coaching. Hit me up. Base.